At the end of the Provincial Key League live broadcast game, two names popped up on the big screen at the same time. Lin Zhaoye, who ranked first in contribution value. Lu Xianzhou, who tied for first place. Before the barrage finished reading, "Is this a related household?" The background had already cut into the online applications for 4 training camps. The class teacher, Luo Jianping, who had pinned us next to the trash can the day before, stood by the camera and wanted to explain, "Actually, our class has always been aware of the situation of these 2 children." But the seal of the file bag in his hand was only opened yesterday. Everyone finally remembered that on the first day of transfer, Lu Xianzhou and I were regarded as related students with an average score and were placed in the last row of the classroom. The top student's Gemini reminded us not to press the answering machine randomly. The whole class was waiting to see the joke. They thought it was humiliating, but I just felt like the lights on the new track were finally turned on. The louder the laughter, the steadier the hand. The more difficult the question, the calmer the mind. Because Lu Xianzhou and I have been a pair since childhood. The more others look down upon us, the more excited we become. The first thing that was pushed in front of me was the old desk next to the trash can. 1. On the first day of transfer, the head teacher Luo Jianping dragged my and Lu Xianzhou's desks to the trash can. The tin bucket had just been overturned by the student on duty, and there was still half a piece of scratch paper filled with derivatives hanging on the edge. Luo Jianping held our portfolios, but didn't even open the seals. He only glanced at the red stamp on the eye bag and his face darkened. "The newcomers will sit at the back. Our class 1 is the strongest class in the province, and we don't support idlers. Since you have transferred in through the Elite Direct program, you should know the appropriateness and not affect the average score of the class." The classroom was quiet for a second, and then there was low laughter. "Elite Direct plan? Isn't it just a relationship household? You're transferring in after your sophomore year of high school, so the school director's children can experience life?" I didn't explain, but first looked at the grade list in the upper right corner of the blackboard. The first place was Shun Jiaxu, with a monthly score of 712. The second place is Su Mingyue, 709. The third place is Zhou Che, 697. Next to it is the Galaxy Cup school team preparatory list, with Shun Jiaxu and Su Mingyue at the front, and 2 stars drawn behind them. The discomfort in my heart caused by the smell of the trash can suddenly faded away. Lu Xianzhou stood beside me, his school uniform jacket hung loosely on his arm, looking like he hadn't woken up. But I've known him for 15 years, and as soon as I saw the look on his face that was about to laugh or not, I knew that this person was already calculating scores. I asked in a low voice, "Are you happy?" He lowered his eyes and looked at me, a little bit. "I feel good too. After all, Lu Xianzhou and I have been a pair since childhood. I would feel uncomfortable if I didn't take first place. He can pretend better than me. Not only does he have to take first place, but he also has to pretend to be just passing by the track." When we were in Rongqing, the 2 of us beat the city's joint test record until the teacher fell silent, and then we were transferred by the Alliance to the province to participate in the Galaxy Cup Live Challenge. Unexpectedly, on the first day, we were placed next to the trash can. Seeing us not moving, Luo Jianping frowned and asked, "Why, are you not satisfied with the seats?" I immediately dragged my school bag over and said, "No, teacher, it's very nice here." Lu Xianzhou followed behind, moved the table 2 centimeters to the side, just enough to block the trash can for me, and stuffed the recommendation letter that read Provincial Key League Competition Direct Student into the belly of the table without even trying to explain. A man and a woman in the front row turned around at the same time. The boy had a row of gel pens of the same color on his desk, and the girl had her hair tied in a high ponytail, her eyes always fixed on our portfolios. I can guess it without any introduction. The top academic twins, Shen Jiaxu and Su Mingyue. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. Luo Jianping seemed to have just remembered this matter, and his tone was perfunctory. Let's take a look at the basics first. There will be a 30-minute quiz this afternoon. New students will follow suit. Write as much as you can and don't hand in blank papers. Su Mingyue curled her lips. Don't worry, Teacher Luo. We will help them adapt. Several people behind him laughed again. Lu Xianzhou yawned slightly next to him and pushed a black pen onto my desk. Lin Zhaoye, which one do you want with the title of Academic Master Gemini? I picked up the pen and wrote my name on the first page of the draft book. I looked up at the 2 stars drawn with a highlighter on the blackboard. I don't want stars. First and second. I want them all. 2. When the curlers came out for the afternoon quiz, the whole class was waiting for Lu Xianzhou and I to make a fool of ourselves. The paper is a self-compiled comprehensive question on provincial key points, which takes 30 minutes and is worth a full score of 100. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later, that's all we know. Luo Jianping looked at us specifically. New students don't be nervous. If you don't know how to do it, just leave it blank. I nodded and turned over the entire scroll. Lu Xianzhou was even more outrageous. He capped off his pen after reading only the first page and lay down on the table to sleep for 10 minutes. Someone in the back row laughed in a low voice. It's over. They're just here to mess around. I bet the 2 of them combined are only 60. I had just finished writing the last step of the first question. When I heard the sentence, I suddenly regretted not hiding it well. Lu Xianzhou lay on his back without raising his head and just tapped on the edge of my draft paper a short time and a long time. The secret code is, don't overdo it. You'll get bored easily. I suppressed my laughter and wrote the steps for the next 2 questions more normally. When I put away my pen, he sat up and started writing from the last question. The exam bell rang, and Luo Jianping came down personally to collect the papers. When collecting my paper, he obviously paused because my paper was too full. When he turned over Lu Xianzhou's paper again, his expression became even stiffer. Lu Xianzhou's process was pitiful, but every result was as accurate as a nail. Have you done this before? Luo Jianping asked. The classroom fell silent for a moment. I looked up. No. Lu Xianzhou was even lazier. The question is not difficult. Zhou Che gasped in the front row. Su Minghua looked back at him. This set of papers is an internal question bank. It is impossible for other schools to see it in advance. Lu Xianzhou supported his chin and suggested sincerely. Then you ask the teacher. After a period of evening self-study, the results are posted on the back blackboard. Lin Zhaoya, 100. Lu Xianzhou, 100. Shen Jieshu, 97. Su Mingyue, 96. Zhou Che, 92. The only sound left in the classroom is the air conditioner. The boy who just bet that Lu Xianzhou and I together were no more than 60 chewed the cap of his pen. Zhou Che seemed to see a strange scene. You have really never done this before? I said sincerely, no, it's still the same if I change the number. Zhou Che's breath was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't go up or come down. Shen Jieshu walked over, still maintaining a little politeness on his face. There are few questions in the quiz, so a perfect score can't mean much. Tomorrow's Alliance joint test will be a combination of 7 subjects, with a perfect score of 750. The time, physical strength, and stability are different. Su Mingyue also answered softly. And the joint test results will be synchronized to the Alliance system, which will be very stressful for new students. The words sounded like a reminder, but in my ears they sounded like an invitation. Lu Xianzhou lowered his head to put away his pen. After hearing the words, he raised his eyes, and his eyes finally regained some energy. 705. Shen Jieshu nodded. Our goal this time is more than 720. Lu Xianzhou said, oh. I knew what he meant by, oh. It wasn't that he was surprised, but that he thought the goal was a bit low. When the evening self-study ended, Lu Xianzhou threw his school bag over his shoulder. How many exams do you plan to take tomorrow? I thought for a moment. Look at you. He tilted his head. Then what should I do if I don't perform well? I smiled. That's best. Otherwise I won't have a sense of accomplishment if I win. Free. On the day of the Alliance's joint test, Luo Jianping arranged for Lu Xianzhou and I to be in different examination rooms. He said it was to allow new students to adapt to the Alliance's unified invigilation of exams, and to prevent others from misunderstanding that we influence each other. As soon as he finished speaking, someone in the class laughed softly. I didn't expose it, because for a really fun game, it's best for them to lay out the rules themselves. 7 subjects combined, with a full score of 750. When the papers were handed out, the only sound in the examination room was the sound of turning pages. The last comprehensive question accounts for 24 points. The first half is about sequence, the second half is about physical modeling, and there is also a parameter discussion in the middle that makes people want to curse. I watched it for 30 seconds and almost laughed. There are 2 approaches to this question. One is stable and the steps are long. Another faster way, but see the hidden condition on the 3rd line. I originally wrote half a page using the first method, but suddenly stopped in the middle of writing and changed to the second method. Because I know that Lu Xianzhou will definitely use the second method. If I am slow, he will definitely bother me at night. After the joint test, the answer sheets were scanned and uploaded, and the results were not released until the afternoon of the next day. Shen Jieshu was surrounded by several people in the front row and said that he had finished the last question, but he was not sure about one question. Su Mingyue glanced at me. This time it is much more difficult than last time. 702 is probably very difficult. I was unpacking the milk and didn't answer the call. Lu Xianzhou sat nearby and read the weather forecast, more seriously than the joint test. I asked, which one do you use for the last question? He didn't even raise his eyes. The second kind. I said it was a coincidence. He finally looked at me and said, then I'm at a loss. I thought you would use the first one to make it look better. I almost choked on my milk. Someone in the back row rolled his eyes. What are you pretending to be? I haven't even given an answer yet. Lu Xianzhou leaned back in his chair and lazily said, so let's warm up first. Results will be posted before the 3rd class in the afternoon of the next day. The Alliance system was projected on the big screen in the classroom. Luo Jianping stood next to the podium with a calm expression until the first page came out. First place, Lin Zhaoya, with a total score of 732. The second place was Lu Xianzhou, with a total score of 731. Third place, Shen Jieshu, 708. Fourth place, Su Mingyue, 704. Fifth place, Zhou Che, 699. There is no sound in the classroom. Even when the pen in Zhou Che's hand fell to the ground, no one bent down to pick it up. When I looked at the big screen, my first reaction was not happiness, but turned to look at Lu Xianzhou. He was looking at me too. We looked at each other for a second, and I spoke first. You're 1 point short. He said, yeah. I asked, on purpose. He paused, and his voice was not loud, but just enough for the few people around to hear. No, I really didn't perform well this time. When Zhou Che bent down to pick up the pen, his head almost hit the edge of the table. The class finally exploded. 732? Isn't the league record 728? Shen Jiaxu is only 708. How can they be so tall? Luo Jianping didn't boast. He just stared at the big screen for a long time, as if trying to find a crack between the two scores. Shen Jiaxu stood up. The politeness on his face finally cracked. Teacher Luo, I apply for review. Su Mingyue also stood up. I'm applying too. It's not for new students, but the point difference is too abnormal. The Alliance joint test is related to the ranking of the Galaxy Cup school teams, so it's best to be more rigorous. As soon as the word rigorous came out, the students seemed to have found a step. I listened to their words one after another and tapped my fingers on the table. The trash can was next to it, and its lid had been touched by the wind. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to remind me where we sat on the first day. I stood up and picked up the pen on the table. You can review it. You can check the scans, the monitoring, and the original answer sheet. Lu Xianzhou slowly stood up and added, It's best to review it on the spot. Shen Jiaxu frowned. Review what? Lu Xianzhou looked at him, and his tone was as calm as if he was asking what was for dinner tonight. Don't you think it's unusual? Then try the unusual questions again. 4. The Academic Affairs Office temporarily opened a small conference room. Luo Jianping, grade director, and competition team teachers are all here. Shen Jiaxu and Su Mingyue sat opposite us, with several class cadres crowding behind them. Zhou Che passed by 3 times holding his homework book and was finally let in to sit in a corner. The Alliance system quickly retrieved the original scan, and the name, examination room number, and barcode all matched. The monitoring system was also turned on. I kept my head down while writing the paper. Lu Xianzhou was even more bored. He fell asleep for 20 minutes after finishing writing. The grade director stared at the monitor in silence for a long time. Shen Jiaxu's face turned paler, but Su Mingyue didn't give up yet. Pointing to the last comprehensive question, he said, Both of you used the second method. This idea is not common. I just think it's too coincidental. Before I spoke, Lu Xianzhou picked up the whiteboard pen and said, What a coincidence. He wrote down the most inconspicuous set of conditions in the question. What is given here is restraint, not interference. Seeing this, the first method is too stupid. He was usually too lazy to say a word less and would never say more, but once he talked about the topic, his steps were short, precise, and ruthless. Everyone thought he had skipped a beat, and the next line had already filled the gap. The competition group teacher sat up straight when he saw the third row. Lu Xianzhou circled the results and looked back at me. Just write it. I took the pen and wrote another method of disassembly next to it. Same question, same answer, different path. Halfway through writing, the competition team teacher whispered, This is more stable than the reference answer. No one answered the call in the conference room. I finished writing the last line and covered the whiteboard pen. Teacher, which question do you want to answer? The grade director cleared his throat. No need. The scans, monitoring, and on-site review are all fine. Lin Zhaoya and Lu Xianzhou's results are valid. Zhou Che whispered, Wow, in the corner. Shen Jiaxu heard it, and the tips of his ears turned red obviously. Su Mingyue lowered her head. The words, what a coincidence, she just said were like a thin needle falling back and pricking herself. Luo Jianping's expression was the ugliest. It is a good thing for the class that the results are valid, but on the first day he drove us to the trash can, on the second day he said we were lucky, and on the third day he saw us turning the review into a public lecture. This is not the right thing to be happy about. The grade director glanced at him. Teacher Luo, since these 2 children are at this level, should the ranking of the Galaxy Cup school team be rediscussed based on the joint test results? Luo Jianping pressed his fingers on the file bag. Only then did I notice that the portfolio had finally been opened, revealing the recommendation letter for Provincial Key Alliance Elite Direct students. He obviously saw it, but when he raised his head, his tone was still tough. It's one thing to have valid results. The Galaxy Cup is a team-live competition, not just about scores. Shen Jiaxu and Su Mingyue have been with the school team for 2 years, and temporary substitutions are not appropriate. Tomorrow is just a live broadcast of the school selection. They can go to the alternate seats to take a look and familiarize themselves with the process. Take a look. These 3 words gently pushed back the fairness that had just risen in the conference room. Lu Xianzhou looked down at the portfolio and suddenly asked, Teacher, have you read the bylaws? He turned the copy to the last page and clicked on one of the lines with his fingertips. If the top 2 players in the league joint test are not included in the original school team roster, they can get equal answering seats in the live selection. The original school team members are dynamically sorted according to real-time contribution value. The conference room was quiet again. It's not just a look, it's an equal opportunity to answer questions. The grade director took the paper and frowned more and more. Teacher Luo, this bylaw was synchronized last week. The teacher of the competition group also darkened his face. Yes, we have synchronized. Luo Jianping's lips moved, and finally, he just said, I didn't pay attention at the moment. Lu Xianzhou said, Yeah, it's okay. He picked up the whiteboard pen again and added a bracket next to the answer to the previous question. Shen Jiaxu couldn't help but ask, What is that? Lu Xianzhou put down the pen. I missed the simplified steps just now. So I said, I didn't perform well this time. 5. The live broadcast of the Galaxy Cup on-campus election is scheduled for 7 p.m. the next day. The location is the school's multi-purpose hall, with 4 formal answering seats and 2 supplementary answering seats, and is connected to the Alliance live broadcast room. More than a dozen schools from key provincial leagues will be watching, and the real-time standings will scroll simultaneously. Whoever is stronger or faster will spread the news the next day. Luo Jianping didn't mention the seat next to the trash can all day long. He began to change his name to call us classmate Lin Zhaoya and classmate Lu Xianzhou, but he was still defensive in his politeness. The reaction of the students in the class was more direct. During the morning reading, the boy who bet that we were no more than 60 yesterday put a pack of wet wipes on my table. Well, the trash can smell is quite strong. Why don't you wipe the table? I glanced at him. He immediately added, I don't dislike you. I dislike the trash can. I couldn't help laughing and accepted it. Zhou Che turned around and said, Are you really going tonight? I said yes if the rules allow it. He was more nervous than me. The Galaxy Cup is a rush answer system. If you're slower, you'll get no points. Just because you're strong in the joint test, it does not mean that you are strong in the live broadcast. Lu Xianzhou was lying down to catch up on his sleep. He didn't even open his eyes when he heard this. Answer? Zhou Che nodded. He finally looked up. His hair was a little messy, and he looked harmless. That's good. Zhou Che was confused. What's so good about it? Lu Xianzhou said, There is no need to write down the process. Before the evening self-study, the equipment has been set up in the multi-purpose hall. Galaxy Cup National Youth Mathematics and Physics Innovation Challenge School Selection scrolled on the big screen, and below were the names of the 6 participating students. Shen Jiashu and Su Mingyue were sitting at the answering seats number 1 and 2. Lu Xianzhou and I were waiting in the supplementary seats. The font size was smaller than theirs. As soon as I sat down, Su Mingyue looked back at me. The live broadcast is different from the exam. Wrong answers will deduct points and affect the school ranking. If you are not sure, it is best not to click randomly. Shen Jiashu also spoke. We are not targeting you, but the school team's honor is not personal performance. There will be league rematches after the Galaxy Cup, so stability is more important. I looked at the answering machine in front of them and suddenly remembered the table next to the trash can on the first day. They really like to use the word collective. Seat humiliation was for the sake of average scores, performance review was for rigor, but now we don't want us to press the answering machine, and it has become school team honor again. Every sentence is decent, and behind every sentence is the same meaning. Don't come up. Lu Xianzhou lowered his head and checked the seat replacement button, then pressed the audition button, and a green popped up on the screen. The device is okay. He then raised his head and looked at Shen Jiashu. Are you afraid that I will snatch you? Shen Jiashu's expression changed slightly. I just remind you to follow the team's rhythm. Lu Xianzhou nodded with a good attitude, then press faster. Some people around couldn't help but laugh, and then immediately suppressed it. Luo Jianping frowned. Lu Xianzhou, pay attention to the occasion. Lu Xianzhou shut up obediently. I finished for him. Teacher, don't worry, we pay attention to the occasion. So for each question later, we will wait for 3 seconds to formally sit down, leaving room for the team's rhythm. The live countdown begins. On the big screen, the number of people online in the league's live broadcast room jumped up little by little, and the name of the school's team began to appear in the barrage area. The 4 words, Academic Dominance Gemini, were mixed in rows and rows of cheers, bright and dazzling. I glanced down at my name tag. Tono Hayashi. Very small. But it doesn't matter. A small name doesn't mean a low score. 3, 2, 1. The connection to the live broadcast was successful, and the host's voice came out. Welcome to the Galaxy Cup on-campus selection site. The first round is a fast-paced true or false question. Official seats are given priority, and supplementary seats can be answered after 3 seconds. Please prepare, all contestants. Shen Jiashu sat upright, and Su Mingyue also stopped laughing. The moment the first question popped up, the entire multifunctional hall seemed to be tightened up. Shen Jiashu moved his hands. I counted in my mind, 1, 2, 3. Lu Xianzhou turned his head to look at me, with a smirk in his eyes. Tono Hayashi. He put his finger on the button and whispered, Don't blink. 6. The second the answering machine turned on, the first thing that sounded in the multifunction hall was not the prompt tone, but Shen Jiashu's obviously erratic breathing. The first question is very short, only 2 lines. But the bad thing about it is that the first half of the sentence is like giving away points, but the second half of the sentence suddenly changes the conditions. Shen Jiashu's hand was already halfway down and stopped just above the button. The 3-second countdown ended, the replacement seat permission was unlocked, and Lu Xianzhou pressed it. Wrong. The host's voice followed shortly after. The answer is correct, and the replacement seat Lu Xianzhou will receive 10 points. The credits on the big screen jumped. The barrage area was empty for half a second before someone sent out a string of question marks. Zhou Che covered his mouth in the audience, his shoulders shaking as if he was going crazy laughing. Shen Jiashu's face froze. Su Mingyue immediately looked back at him, with a bit of urgency in his eyes. Why didn't you press the button just now? Shen Jiashu didn't answer. When the second question popped up, Su Mingyue grabbed it quickly. There was only one qualification missing from her answer. After the moderator determines that the question is wrong, the question will enter the supplementary answer. I pressed the button and filled in the 4 words she missed. The answer is correct. 10 points will be added to the replacement, Shilin Turno. Lu Xianzhou turned his head and looked at me. You steal my question. I looked at the big screen. You just took the first question from me. He said, oh, slowly. Then it's even? No, I said. I am 1 point less than you, so we can't be equal. The teacher of the competition group in the front row lowered his head and coughed. Luo Jianping stood at the edge of the answering area, his expression changing from nervous to ugly. He wanted to remind us to pay attention to the live broadcast, but the camera was facing the answering booth and he couldn't rush over and pull the button. There are 20 quick judgment questions in total. Formal seats have 3 seconds of priority, so we really have to wait 3 seconds for each table. If someone answers correctly within 3 seconds, we won't touch it. If no one dares to press within 3 seconds, or if someone answers incorrectly, we will make up for it. By the 8th question, the barrage area had begun to change. What's the origin of the supplementary seat? Why are they waiting in line to hand in their homework? Did that girl just say that she was missing something? What was missing? Zhou Che borrowed the mobile phone of a classmate from the competition class and quickly posted in the live broadcast room. She is 732 in the Alliance joint test, and he is 731. He just transferred to our class today. After that barrage was posted, the live broadcast room completely exploded. In the 12th question, Shun Jeshu finally grabbed one. The answer was correct, and the big screen gave him 10 points. The audience burst into applause, and his shoulders, which had been tense all night, finally relaxed. As soon as the next question came up, Lu Xianzhou asked me softly, do you want him to accept this question? I looked at the question for 2 seconds and said, no need. Why? Because he'd be wrong. Shun Jiashu pressed the button as expected. The moment he finished reporting his answer, Su Mingyue's expression changed, and it was too late to make up for it. If the host makes a mistake, 5 points will be deducted and the question will be open for supplementary answers. I pressed the button. The condition is an interval, not an integer point. I said, so the answer should be 3. The big screen jumped again. For the first time, the contribution value of the supplementary seats exceeded that of the number 1 and number 2 official seats. Lu Xianzhou leaned on the back of his chair and said in a low voice that only I could hear, Lin Zhaoye. What? You didn't perform well just now. I turned to look at him. He was serious. You could tell he was wrong from the first word he said. I laughed angrily. Lu Xianzhou, do you want to die? He pressed the button for the next question and replied lazily, we'll talk about it after we win. 7. The second round is team modeling questions. This round is no longer a matter of answering questions. The 6 contestants share an electronic whiteboard. Formal seats submit plans, and supplementary seats can be added. As soon as the rules were announced, Su Mingyue breathed a sigh of relief. When the first modeling question came out, I also thought they had a chance. The question is not difficult, but the division of labor is difficult. Shin Jiashu is used to making decisions on his own, and Su Mingyue is used to filling in for him. There is a tacit understanding between the two, but they care too much about the camera. During the discussion, every word they say seems to prove that they are still first and second. Jiashu, you list the main function first, and I'll do the error term. No, just write down the boundary conditions. But boundary conditions are not the point here. Listen to me first. 3 minutes passed, and half of what was written on the whiteboard was erased. The laughter in the audience became lighter and softer, and finally turned into nervous silence for them. I looked at the countdown, and there was 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Lu Xianzhou drew 2 lines on the paper and pushed it to my hand. I glanced at it and added the 3rd item. After he finished reading, the pen tip clicked on the lower right corner. This has been an old problem between us since childhood. When I see the question, even if I am not allowed to answer, I still want to find fault with each other. When there were only 50 seconds left in the countdown, the teacher of the competition team finally said, you can give me suggestions if you have a spare seat. I immediately stood up, picked up the electronic pen, and wrote 3 lines of equations on the right side of the whiteboard. The main function remains unchanged, and the error term is incorporated. This saves 1 variable. Lu Xianzhou took over. Don't start the 3rd step. Just accept the restraint directly. Otherwise it will be too late. Shin Jiashu's hands stopped on the keyboard. He knew we were right. He also knew that if he did so now, the camera would catch them being saved by the bench. Su Mingyue bit her lip and whispered first, follow them. In the last 10 seconds, the plan was submitted. The system passed the judgment. Applause erupted in the multi-purpose hall. The applause is no longer just for the top students, but spreads to us from the back row. In the second question, Shun Jiashu took the lead, but missed the unit conversion. In the third question, in order to prove himself, Su Mingyue deleted the restrictions Lu Xianzhou added in advance. After the system made 2 consecutive misjudgments, the real-time contribution list changed. First, Lin Zhaoye. Second, Lu Xianzhou. Third, Shun Jiashu. Fourth, Su Mingyue. Dynamic sorting started. The host glanced at the process card and said, based on the contribution value, the official answering seats for the 3rd round will be adjusted. Lin Zhaoye and Lu Xianzhou will move to seats 1 and 2, while Shin Jiashu and Su Mingyue will move to the supplementary seats. The scene was so quiet that you could even hear the sound of the fans of the equipment. Shin Jiashu stood up suddenly. Isn't this appropriate? The host's smile did not change. This is the rule announced before the game. He looked at Luo Jianping. Luo Jianping opened his mouth, but didn't say a word. The bylaw was just clicked on by the grade director in the conference room. Now, the number of people in the live broadcast room has broken the record. He can no longer say that he didn't pay attention. I stood up from the supplementary seat, and when I passed by Shin Jiashu, he whispered, "Do you have to go to this point?" I paused. It's not that we have to reach this point. I looked at him. It's that the rules are written here. Lu Xianzhou had already sat in seat number 1 and moved the button 2 centimeters to the right for me. It was exactly the same as when he blocked the trash can for me on the first day. I suddenly wanted to laugh. Things like the original location really change. Before the start of the third round, the host asked the contestants to adjust the microphone. Lu Xianzhou only said 3 words during the audition. Audible. When it was my turn, I looked at the re-enlarged name on the big screen and said, "You can hear me." A row of new titles appeared in the barrage area. Double core in the back row. First and second by the trash can. Don't make any noise. I want to watch them continue to roll. 8. At the end of the third round, our school ranked first in total points. The last final question is an open deduction question. The system only gives points for the conclusion, and the process is reviewed by the judges on site. Shin Jiashu and Su Mingyue sat at the supplementary seats and did not compete for words. When I wrote the second line, Lu Xianzhou had already pushed the conclusion to me. I looked at it and crossed out a symbol. He raised his eyebrows. "Are you sure?" "Sure." "If you lose, it's yours?" "Even if I win, it's mine." He smiled, leaned back, and handed me the submit button. The moment I pressed it, the system entered review. The heads of the 5 judges and teachers lit up one after another. The first teacher said that the deduction path was established. The second teacher said that the conclusion was more concise. And the third teacher directly asked, "Which level of training have these 2 children participated in before?" The grade director was sitting in the front row and finally couldn't help but laugh. Luo Jianping's expression looked as if someone had taken away half of the test paper in front of everyone. Review passed. The school's overall score is first, and Lu Xianzhou and I are tied for first in personal contribution. When 2 names popped up on the big screen, the audience burst into applause. Zhou Che shouted the loudest. "First in the back row! First in the back row!" I originally thought it would be the end of the night here. Unexpectedly, just as the host announced the results of the competition, the backstage suddenly cut into 4 online applications. The technical teacher looked at the source and was stunned. Jinghua Youth Science Camp, Beichin Mathematics and Physics Top-Notch Camp, Fuchuan Future Engineering Camp, and Haijiao Innovation Training Camp. He read at the end with his voice shaking. All 4 project teams have applied for connection. The multi-purpose hall was quiet again. These are not admission promises, nor actual admissions channels, but open training camps, scientific research experience camps, and scholarship programs. But for top students, it's enough to make people breathless. After the first connection was connected, the other teacher came straight to the point. "We would like to invite classmates Lin Zhaoya and Lu Xianzhou to participate in the Summer Mathematics and Science Top-Notch Camp. The project information has been sent to your school's email. The scholarship training package is applied according to the public process and will not affect any formal entrance exams and admissions procedures." The second connection came in immediately. Beichin also sent an invitation. We watched the entire replay, especially the 2 ideas for the last question. The 4th application was still flashing in the background. The barrage area went completely crazy. Is this a related household? Related students are sitting next to the trash can? The treatment of related students in your school is so simple. Who said just now that you shouldn't randomly press the supplementary seats? Su Mingyue looked down at her hands. She dug her nails into her palms and said nothing. Shin Jiashu stared at the big screen, unable to hold on to the last bit of pride on his face. Luo Jianping suddenly walked to the camera and wanted to add something to the scene. "Actually, our class has always been aware of the situation of these 2 children. We arranged for them to sit in the back row to let them adapt first." The grade director turned to look at him. He still held the portfolio in his hand. The edge of the seal shows signs of being opened just yesterday. "Teacher Luo." The grade director said in a low voice, "The live broadcast is still going on." These 4 words are more effective than any reprimand. Luo Jianping's words were stuck in his throat. The barrage in the live broadcast room was quiet for half a second, and then another line appeared. "The live broadcast is still going on." I didn't look at him. I picked up the name tag on the table. In the morning, it was smaller than others. Now, the technical teacher in the background printed another one, which is the same size as seat 1 and seat 2. Lu Xianzhou came over to take a look. "Can't bear to part with you?" "No," I said. "I was thinking that the table next to the trash can would be quite interesting to me." He nodded. "Then continue to sit tomorrow?" I looked at him. "You don't mind the taste?" Lu Xianzhou put his coat on the back of my chair and said in a lazy tone, "I'll sit next to you anyway." The surrounding students started to boo again. Luo Jianping's face became even stiffer, but this time, he didn't ask us to pay attention to the occasion. 9. Reading early the next day, the door of class 1 was crowded with people. Not to see Shin Jiashu and Su Mingyue, nor to see the performance list. Everyone's eyes fell on the 2 old tables at the back. Zhou Che was the first to arrive and was squatting next to the trash can mopping the floor. I stood at the door and looked at him for 3 seconds. "What are you doing?" He raised his head with a very serious expression. "Purify the seats for the God test." I choked on him. The boy who gave me wet wipes yesterday immediately raised his hand. I applied to be rotated to the back row next week. The girl next to me also said, I'm applying too. I'm not afraid of the smell of trash cans. Lu Xianzhou walked behind me and paused for half a second when he heard the sentence. Don't. Aromatherapy will affect the problem solving. The whole class looked at him at the same time. He slowly added, It's too fragrant and makes me sleepy. Zhou Che covered his face and laughed until his shoulders trembled. Before the morning reading bell rang, Luo Jianping came in with a new seating chart. For the first time, no one in the classroom bowed his head to recite. Everyone has seen the results of yesterday's live broadcast selection. Lin Zhaoye and Lu Xianzhou's elite direct status, joint test results, and Galaxy Cup contribution values have all been verified. There is no so-called related household problem. When he said this, his Adam's apple moved. As the class teacher, I did not read the archive materials carefully on the first day. I made inappropriate seating arrangements based on experience and prejudice. I also mishandled the subsequent review and registration issues. I would like to apologize to the two students. Luo Jianping turned to our side and bent down. I'm sorry. I didn't speak immediately. I thought of the unopened portfolio on the first day and of don't affect the class average. Sometimes prejudice does not need to be bad. As long as it stands on the podium, it can make the whole class laugh. I said, Teacher, I accept the apology. Luo Jianping just breathed a sigh of relief, and I added, but I don't accept that there will be new students in the future who will be placed next to the trash can because they don't look like first place. He blushed. Not again. The grade director posted the new selection rules on the bulletin board that day. Filling of seats, ranking, and recommendation materials are all publicly disclosed, and subjective evaluations are not allowed to replace grades and contribution values within the class. Shen Jiaxu and Su Mingyue also came to see me during lunch break. Shen Jiaxu stood for a long time before saying, On the day of the review, I didn't just want to be strict. I really didn't accept it. Su Mingyue continued in a low voice. Me too. I'm afraid that after you come, others will no longer see us. This is more true than a dry apology. I looked at them and suddenly felt that this slap in the face was enough. What we want is position, not trampling others into rubbish. Then continue taking the exam. I said, See you on the list next time. Lu Xianzhou raised his eyes from the side, but I don't have to give in to the first or second place. Shen Jiaxu's mouth twitched. Su Mingyue smiled instead. I know. That afternoon, there were 3 extra temporary benches at the end of the queue. Zhou Che sat diagonally behind me holding an exercise book and handed him a pack of lemon candies before asking a question. Apprenticeship ceremony, he said. I pushed back half of it. The tuition is too expensive. Lu Xianzhou picked one out, opened it, and stuffed it into his mouth. I'll collect it for her. Zhou Che looked at him, then at me, and asked in a low voice, What is the relationship between you two? Before I could answer, Lu Xianzhou had already opened the question book and said calmly, Competition. I looked down and smiled. Really? It's just that we have been competing since kindergarten, and by the way, no one is willing to change opponents. Chapter 10, we pretended till the end. We really came first in the exam. The Galaxy Cup League resumes in 2 weeks. No one in the class that day asked us if we were related households. Everyone seemed to have suddenly suffered from study anxiety. They memorized formulas in the morning and answered wrong questions during class. Even Zhou Che had a small notebook when he went to get water. On the day of the rematch, our school still sent a 6-person team. Shen Jiaxu and Su Mingyue are also on the list. This time no one mentioned who was the center and who was the fill-in. Before departure, Su Mingyue handed me an error-prone checklist. I did it, she said. It may not be faster than you, but it should save some time. I took it and flipped through 2 pages. It's quite useful. The second condition is missing on the 3rd page. Su Mingyue took a deep breath. I'll make up for it now. Shen Jiaxu suddenly smiled. No wonder Zhou Che said that if I sit with you for a week, his psychological quality will improve. The semi-final questions are more difficult. At the end of the 3rd round, our school tied for first place with the number 1 middle school next door. Before the last question was announced, my palms became sweaty. Lu Xianzhou saw it. He didn't laugh at me. He just pushed the scratch paper a little towards me. There is a lemon candy pressed into the corner of the paper. Tono Hayashi. Invite me to drink milk tea after winning. I looked at him. Why? I played well today. I almost laughed. When the last question came out, Lu Xianzhou and I lowered our heads at the same time. Shen Jiaxu is responsible for the data, Su Mingyue is responsible for the error, and Zhou Che is keeping an eye on the time. For 5 minutes, no one was fighting for the center. Everyone was just focusing on the question itself. After pressing the submit button, the system reviewed for a full 40 seconds. 40 seconds was very long, so long that I could hear Luo Jianping pinching the process sheet back and forth in the background. The result jumped out. Number 1 in this school. Lin Zhaoye ranks first in personal contribution value. Lu Xianzhou, second. Shen Jiaxu, Su Mingyue, and Zhou Che have all entered the list of outstanding players in the league. Zhou Che threw the pen away on the spot, then picked it up distressfully. Shen Jiaxu leaned back on the chair, as if he had finally breathed a sigh of relief. Su Mingyue lowered her head and smiled for a long time. I looked at Lu Xianzhou. You are 1 point short. He didn't say he didn't perform well this time. He just slowly put the lemon candy in my hand. On purpose. I was stunned for a moment. Lu Xianzhou looked at the big screen and said in a very soft voice, "You lost me a little red flower in kindergarten and cried for a long time. Then I thought, I have to let you in it back." I pinched the candy wrapper and was suddenly speechless. We have known each other for 15 years, but he has always been terribly indebted, terribly lazy, and pretending to be terribly lazy. But every time I look back, he is on the same track. I asked, "So you've been giving in all these years?" He immediately looked at me. "Occasionally, it depends on your mood." I stared at him for 2 seconds, then opened the lemon candy and stuffed it into my mouth. The sour taste rushed up all of a sudden, but I laughed. "Then don't give in anymore." Lu Xianzhou raised his eyebrows.